Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is for you. I'm Cyclone, and it's time for more Let's Play Train Simulator Classic. We're back after the Christmas holiday, and I'm back to doing periodic videos for you here. Now, I am looking at the first of three scenarios that I'm going to do on the East Coast Main Line. We're back on the East Coast Main Line, and the reason for that is because I have a lot of content I want to do for the East Coast Main Line. Not only DLC, but also, well, actually, I guess it is pretty much all DLC. And I've got the same thing going on for Great Western Main Line. I am going to also make a point of introducing Somerset and Dorset as well and getting those done as quickly as possible because there's a lot of things I can show you on that as well. Some of the stuff I want to show you are scenarios from old dated DLC, and I may even upgrade the trains in some of those scenarios to show you things we can, that as they stand today with stock that you can use today. So that's part of my plan for these three routes. And since this is one of those original three routes, this is one of the ones that falls into the category. I also have a scenario path that covers all of the routes in the game that someone put out years ago. And it actually is available currently from Just Trains. We're going to look at that in the future as well. It has a couple scenarios on each of the routes from the core games. So we're definitely going to look at a lot of content on these original core routes, and I figured the best way to go into the new year was to come back to one of these old routes and look at old 1978 railroading, because that's what the scenario we're doing today is from. Up for the Cup is based on October 2nd of 1978 at 1:25 in the afternoon, 13:25 as you can see on the screen. This is a 40-minute scenario. I have absolutely no idea what we're doing here, but reading the information, there's an FA Cup clash, so basically sports, between local rivals York and Darlington. A special football service has been laid on. Guys, soccer. Just soccer. Headed by a Class 55 Deltic locomotive. With one stop at Northallerton, you must arrive at Darlington before 2:05 p.m. to ensure all fans get to the match on time. But be wary in case they get too excited before arriving. 40 minutes, medium. So, yeah, I guess they're going to get too excited before arriving, or we're going to have a long wait before we take off. I don't know which yet. Anyway, we'll get started and we will find out. Good afternoon. We're working closely with the police today. There'll be a police sergeant traveling with you just to keep an eye on things. Good luck. So let's go ahead and bring up the HUD to make sure we don't speed. While we're getting ourselves set up here, you can see that we are driving number 50008, otherwise known as the Green Howards. That is our traction for the day. You can see the nameplate is on the other side as well. And as we emerge gleaming into the sun, we are off to our destination, our ultimate destination of Darlington, for a soccer match. Yes, I called it soccer. Bite me. So let's go ahead and turn back around to the front here. A nice view of the driver in the cabin as well. Hello. And that is York behind us, also gleaming in the sun, or the cloudy skies, whatever you want to refer to it as. It works as cloudy skies. I will accept that as the definition, because that's what it is. Yes, it is. Trains on this route are represented by either Class 55s or Class 47s, on this scenario at least. The Class 55s are British Expresses. The Class 47s are British Locals. There's also a 1220 British Freight. So I'll bring up the tab for this one to show you. This is the 1220 British Express. And I should have said 1240 British Freight is coming up. The time I was thinking was the one for this British Express. Oops. Yep, the word oops. Not a word you want to typically hear your barber say. Staying serious, we need to get up to 30 miles per hour. I did not respond to the speed limit increase as quickly as I should have. This may cost me some time later. Now, I have already run this scenario once. I don't remember what I said in my introduction, but I've already run this scenario now once. And let's just say I know the timings are tight on this one. I know it's going to be hard to make the timings finally at the end of this one, as we pass some cars on that other lane there, as this comes to an end on the left. So I'm a little concerned that the timing will be very, very potentially late here, because this does seem like a tight setup. We have until 13:47 to get to Northallerton. We then have 15 minutes to make our way to Darlington. Now, that is technically possible, but if you come in at a slower speed, it might be near impossible. And since we have to come in at 25, possibly, this might be near impossible. So as we approach the 50 miles per hour speed limit, we're going to be entering a 125. I'm going to be disregarding the 100 limit because I know that time is going to be tight as the rain starts. I know time is going to be tight, so we are going to be going as fast as we can. In this train, that is 108 miles per hour. And we may have to have tea and biscuits with the boss tomorrow morning, but I'm going to have a valid complaint that we are not given enough time to do this without being penalized. So I do have my valid complaint that I am trying to complete the mission as directed. And unfortunately, I would need to put some extra speed on to meet that limit. So that is something they're going to have to deal with. And I'm going to have to enjoy those biscuits tomorrow. I will enjoy those biscuits. They also make a really good tea. Chamomile, I believe it is. I don't know. Can't tell what the flavor is. I assume it's full of regret. So that, I think, was one of our British local services. That would have most likely been the 1222 British local. Coming up to the 50 mile per hour speed limit. I may have to cut this back slightly to avoid speeding into the new zone. We will find out in a moment. No, we're fine. We're fine. I can go ahead and actually speed up a little more now. And I will do that. There it is, 125. So I'm going to leave it at about this throttle for a moment because sometimes wheel slip will occur in the rain. And I want to try to avoid having the wheel slip occur. That said, it's not illegal. We don't have any point losses for wheel slip occurring. It's just a thing that happens. And we have to deal with it if it happens. But it won't affect us too much in this scenario because it's just going to make it harder for us to speed up at the most. That's the most that can happen. Now, you may have noticed I'm driving the older original model from the East Coast Main Line today. I'm going to do that for all three of these scenarios. The reason is because, A, most people can't get the additional enhancements anymore. In this case, that would be the Armstrong Powerhouse Class 55 and the Vulcan Productions Class 55 pack that's based on that sound pack. So you can no longer get those items from their respective vendors. So I'm going to show those items separately. I think there's a scenario that came with the AP55, but I am most interested in showing off the 55 on the Vulcan Productions pack. The now retired Payware pack. I noticed the Armstrong Powerhouse pack go down after I picked it up, and I quickly thought, you know what, I need to spend the $16 on this Vulcan Productions pack because it's going to go next. Like, guaranteed it was going to go within a month. And sure enough, a month later, it was no longer there. They tried to work it out with Armstrong Powerhouse. Armstrong Powerhouse apparently said no. And there's going to be some very disappointed people not able to get that pack as a result. Of course, that's only because people like me are showing it off, so I guess I'm a jerk. But that's going to come in the future. That's not going to be today. That will be some point in the future. And we'll have to live with me being a jerk. So coming up to the train's maximum speed of 108. Let's just remember that it takes a long time to get this train to slow down from that speed. The brakes are very, very bad on this train. How bad? You'll see when we get to the station how quickly I slow down. And how much. When we see the 80 sign, we have to be slowing down immediately at that point. If we want to be at a casual pace anyway. And if we want to do a very, very hard brake, we still have to be a fair distance away from the sign. So we're better off just slowing down early on that stop. I'll try to show a good pace for doing so. Let's talk very quickly about some things coming up on the channel. I'm looking not only at Train Sim Classic, but also some Train Sim World, and even another game which I'll get into later. I might talk about that during the second half, but let's start with the Train Sim Classic. You may remember that I've been to Mittenwald Bond. I do want to go back and finish the Mittenwald Bond. may remember I've been to Miami. I want to go back and finish Miami. I also want to, at some point, still get to the West Coast Main Line North. I'm looking at doing the London to Bedford route, the start of the Midland Main Line, before we go to the Just Trains version. Note that Just Trains did not develop the London to Bedford section. I don't know if they're going to ever do the Bedford to Derby section. And I know there's one more section of the Midland Main Line beyond that. Actual official marked sections, not the extension they've currently announced they're doing, but there's one more official section they have not touched yet, which is through Doncaster from Sheffield up to Leeds. But there is a Leeds to Doncaster freeware, or subware if you want to consider that one goes to York. You take your pick of the two. If you're a subscriber, you can take advantage of the York one. There's also a York and Leeds route on track simulation that does not require any of that, I don't believe, so you can get that as well. So take your pick what interests you. There's all sorts of options for that area that are not official or not on Steam. You can still pick them up. Some do have unique requirements, whereas others don't, so keep that in mind. I want to get back to the East Coast Main Line South. I want to show off the Moorgate extension, the freeware extension that is available. Should be noted the Moorgate extension, I can't say the word anymore, comes with 3 additional scenarios for the that section of the route as well. So that is something I'm going to use to introduce that section. 3 new scenarios on that little extension. Again, not part of the main route. You have to have the free extension, and that free extension does require the main route. You don't get the whole route with the extension, unless you buy the originals. So keep that in mind as well. Otherwise, you can try to run the route, but you're going to have trouble running the route because it's going to look for the original one. That's going to look like garbage if you try to run it. I'm also looking at various DLC. I'm not going to try to go to a list right now because it would be way too many. But I am looking at DLC for many routes as well, including London to Brighton among them. I'm also looking at going back to East Coast Main Line itself, which is what we're on right now. There's the 101, I believe. There's some old 101 scenarios that use the route as well. There's some old 08 scenarios, some old 66 scenarios that I can sub the train into. And the new one that is, because it's the RSTL scenarios. I want to see how they hold up today, and basically a science thing, if anything, so we're going to find out together how they hold up with the new version of the train. I think that was another Class 55, so that would most likely be the 1236 British Express that we just passed by, which, yeah, that makes sense. It moved to 1232, or 1332. So that's a little sampling, and that's not exhaustive. I'm also looking at the 150/1, which I think I forgot to mention. That is on the South Wales coastal route. Now keep in mind, they're only available for the South Wales coastal route. They're not available for the South Wales Main Line. I may make South Wales Main Line versions available, but I'll have to make sure I swap every single train that is changed, because what basically changed with those routes is that the South Wales coastal route uses, in the assets folder, it uses Bristol to Cardiff and Bristol to Swansea. Or sorry, Cardiff to Swansea is the second one. So it would use those 2 separate folders. They've been replaced with South Wales 01 and South Wales 02. So basically I'll be changing all the Bristol to Cardiff to the South Wales 01. I'll be changing all the Cardiff to Swansea to South Wales 02. I think it's going to be more South Wales 01 than 02. But once I find the correct versions of each train in the South Wales 01, it's an easy swap for every single train, and I think the numbering is the same as well. I don't think there's any change in the numbering because it's basically just removing the label. So I may make those untrademarked versions available on the workshop. What I might consider doing is putting the Armstrong Powerhouse Class 150 in there. I may do that while I'm playing the scenarios, and that would make me sharing the scenarios a lot easier if you think about it. But I may do that while playing the scenarios. I might just make the Armstrong Powerhouse version of the scenarios available for all of you. When I play those scenarios, I am planning to make them available to you, for those who may not have access to them. I do believe that 150 Type 1 does not have a requirement for the original South Wales Coastal. That's because the requirement for the 150 Type 1 is just the 150 Type 1 on Steam. You don't have to be able to play the scenarios on that DLC to be able to use the Armstrong Powerhouse version of that train. So if that is something that's holding you back from getting the Armstrong Powerhouse version of the train, there is a sale right now at Armstrong Powerhouse until January 2nd. Go pick it up. Go find other trains there that are all 40% off right now. Well, ignore the fact that I got a couple of 50% off during the one-day Thanksgiving sale. But most of his stuff usually goes on 40% off during Christmas. There are exceptions. A few things like coach packs. There are a few that are only 20% off. I'm going to wait on them. I'm not in a hurry. I don't see a need for them yet. But there's something I will definitely consider getting in the future, even if just to play a scenario that comes with them and show them off. Because I will at some point want to show them off. I just have way too much Armstrong Powerhouse content right now to show off. And I do have to eventually work in a bunch of scenarios as well. Possibly some older versions of the scenarios, because I have the May 2021 downloads for a lot of the packs. And having that means I don't have to use the updated newer scenarios that come in the newer versions of the train. So I am going to show off the original versions or some older versions if I can. I may have access to even older versions where there's stock I don't have yet from something else. One thing that is going to be hard for me to do is to show off the Class 37 scenarios that come with the Class 37 pack. They use fast line simulations content that I don't have. I think you can still get it, but I don't think they really have a customer service front anymore, unfortunately. So if you have a problem, you kind of lose your money. It's your risk if you do that. I may make that risk anyway, because I think I've been wanting those tankers for a while that are in that scenario. Meanwhile, the other thing that's used in that route, I'm trying to remember exactly. I think it's something from Just Trains. It might be like the Sea Cows or something like that, or the cargo wagons. They're used in the Armstrong Powerhouse scenario as well. Nowadays, most of his stuff just uses stuff on his own site, but he does make an exception for the Class 185, and he actually puts some Class 185 scenarios in his Powerhouse scenarios area. So you have to buy the 185 for the super expensive price that ATS charges. I'm waiting for a sale on that one, as you can tell. It's not worth $40 to me, guys. I'm sorry. A train is not worth $40. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's not worth $40. That needs a big sale before it's worth it to me. And subscribing for $50 just to get a big savings on it doesn't really help. I do think if Armstrong, or if ATS wants to stay with their subscription model, they do need to change it to make it more accessible to users who don't have huge budgets, even if it means restricting access to certain things until you've been a sub for a certain length of time. I don't think a lot of people would have a problem paying $3 a month. And I'm talking Canadian dollars when I say that, but $3 a month, or I guess it'd be £3 a month because it's actually still less. So maybe $3.50, £3.50 a month. Most people wouldn't have a problem with doing that. And that would cover the whole $32.99. And for those that have conversions like $4, $5, $6, you don't miss that over the course of a month. But you do miss $55 over the course of a month. So I think having a approved subscription model would be something that ATS could benefit from, and then unlock certain downloads after you've been a subscriber for a while. And don't block those downloads if you've already downloaded them. Just keep them available. If you pay for 12 months, leave them available. Don't make them look for a new subscription. Give them the download. I understand the reason they don't want to do that is because it is a way to ensure that their stuff doesn't go for free to someone else. I get that. But I could also use someone else's installer and use their login credentials. Let's just be honest. It can be done. And no, I'm not doing that. I'm just saying it could be done. There's always a way that it can be done. I'm not a hacker. I wouldn't hack someone's credentials like that. Let's talk about some other stuff I want to do on the channel. I mentioned all the Train Sim Classic stuff and some ideas that I have in mind there. I'm also looking at Train Sim World, as we're now 4 minutes away from our supposed stop here. I'm looking at Train Sim World 3. That did come out recently. We had the epic 24-hour period where we basically got to hear stuff go by. And we got to see weird balloons flying through the sky, something flying by. It was all on the test track section, which is now one of the primary features of Train Sim World 3, where you can go in and learn about all the trains that you have ownership of. I think the trains only show up if you have ownership of them, and you can do your tutorials right from that test drive section. You can even take the train out on the track there for a spin and have some fun with it. So a nice way to relax and enjoy your trains without being under the pressure of doing a scenario or meeting a timetable. A nice casual way to use your trains. I think you can even get North America and Europe and UK trains there as well. It's not just limited to Germany or other trains in the area, wherever test track is. You can get all your trains, Sim World trains in there. Fantastic to have that option, I believe. I understand that that's the thing. So I do want to. I'm probably going to start by going there to show off some of the trains in the game, and then I'm going to probably move for sure to the Transpennine, because the Transpennine is something I do have in mind. And I want to show some scenarios on that, because that could be a very interesting journey, especially the Bishop Auckland to Darlington part. I do have the Just Trains version of Bishop Auckland to Darlington as well. I do want to show that off too. I also have the DPS. I've downloaded anyway, not yet installed, but I have downloaded the DPS CP Simulation, East Coast Mainline Modern. I'm using the wrong button. The East Coast Mainline. Yeah, East Coast Mainline, I guess it is modern. East Coast Mainline modern from York to Newcastle. Just Trains had one as well. I was able to acquire access to that, so I'm going to try and show you that at some point to see why they pulled that. I want to see for scientific purposes if it works in the current version of the game or how bad it is in the current version of the game. That is my main objective with that, and to possibly create some closed scenarios on the updated versions of the routes. That is another thing I'm looking at doing. That will take a little work in the scenario editor, which I'll have to learn how to use a bit better. We're going to also look at some point at the Sunderland route, which is northeast England. It also includes the Darlington to Middlesbrough section, not all the way to Saltburn, but at least to Middlesbrough. And it eventually turns north and heads towards Sunderland. So that is the terminus of that route. So that's another one I'm looking at. I have a lot of options for this East Coast Main Line. There's so many, and a lot of them are free or are other payware on Steam. So I'm not surprised that Just Trains pulled theirs, because there are just too many options available for that route right now, and some of them are free. So it's not a surprise they stopped focusing on that. There are some old scenario packs that used to be available. I wasn't able to get my hands on those. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, because they have been pulled from the store. And I actually did point it out, so I think it was after I pointed out that they got pulled from the store, because I noticed they were there and they weren't for the Steam version of the route, that's for sure. I slowed down a little early here, so this is going to affect my timing quite a bit later, but I can't really increase speed too much here without risking problem with my slowdown. I'm going to go ahead and increase a little bit. But I slowed down way too early here. I'm going to go ahead and just play the scenario as is and hope that we don't have a problem. So as you can see, I'm starting to slow down again. The timing still thinks I'm going to be there at 13:46. Silly clock. There's our bell. Dinner's ready. So heavier brake application. We are within the platform. We should be able to stop possibly before the signal. I say possibly, we might go slightly beyond it, because this train you have to really hit the brakes early, but this scenario is not designed for you to hit the brakes early, unfortunately. It is unfortunate. I've eased off the brakes for a moment so I can pull it all the way into the platform if I can. A little more gas quickly. That's going to have to do. I'm not going to get the whole train in. And we need to get going right away. So we're going to go ahead and stop here. This is arrival at Northallerton, platform number 2. Leaving Northallerton. Our next and final stop is Darlington, stopping today at platform number 4. We have not had any trouble on the train yet, so that police sergeant has just been enjoying the ride. He checked in with me to say there were no problems, so I'm happy to hear that report. We're going to finish our drive here and hopefully get to Darlington without any issues. I've applied 58% throttle for right now, and we are going to go ahead and bring our speed up to 80 miles per hour, at which point we will hold our speed limit. I'm going to move the throttle up, not to 100% because I'm going to get some wheel slip. Now I'm going to speed up to 100%. We should be fine now. So there's actually something else special I want to do on the channel. I mentioned Train Sim World. I want to do the East Coast main line, well, crossover, the Teesdale line from Bishop's Auckland to Darlington to Saltburn. But there's also a... Whoopsie. I did not mean to speed. That's bad on me, guys. I got interested in talking about something else and didn't watch my speed. My fault. That'll work. I'll let it slow down on its own. Okay. So I mentioned there's another thing I want to do. I mentioned that Train Sim World route. I do want to do the Neilson and Newton route on the Glasgow Central area as well. That's also of interest in the Scotland area. So I am curious about that. It's one of the shortest routes in Train Sim World. I want to know why it's so short, first of all. I think we know why. That's just what it is. But they didn't bother saying it to Motherwell, which is a little disappointing. I wish they took that one at least to Motherwell. Would have been a lot better for length of scenario purposes, because just going to Motherwell is short as it is. 20 minutes? I don't know, something like that. It could be 20 minutes just to go to Motherwell. So, very, very short, bite-sized scenarios on that route. But it is something we are going to eventually check out. I want to mix that in with the regular West Coast Mainline North route on Train Sim Classic. The problem is that the Train Sim Classic scenarios are, how do I put this politely? Broken. Some of them have trains that have AI collisions or don't move, or go get path down the wrong path. Some have timetables that are impossible. You can't even make the first stop on time. And trust me, I've tried multiple times. So yeah, the scenarios on that route, sorry Keith, they don't work today. And you haven't updated them. Someone's got to fix them. Someone's got to fix them. And I'm probably going to have to be the one to fix them. So I'll be doing that. It also makes me wonder about the West Coast Mainline North scenarios that he has on UK Train Sim. I'm going to eventually take a look at those 6 scenarios as well and see what they need in order to work properly. If I know that some stock is no longer available, like the old 101 model. I don't know if he used the old one or the new one at the time, but they need to be swapped to the new one. I think it is the old one he might have used. I think he had a Deltic scenario in the mix as well. I'm sure he used a 47 somewhere. We'll get to him. We'll get to them. But the other major project I wanted to touch off on is something called, something in Poland, in the Poland route area, train route area. It uses line number 1 from Katowice, I think is how you say it, to Warsaw, and also an additional route that you can't play yet until the full release. But it is in playtest right now. The game is called SimRail. Now, I'm not announcing this as some kind of competition thing with DTG. Not in the least. In reality, the only reason I'm mentioning it is because we don't have anything in Poland in this or Train Sim World yet. So for that reason, if I want to play the route from Poland, I have to play SimRail. I have no choice. And it is not tied to this game, so that means I will have to play that as a separate game. I am thinking on January 13th, assuming it releases on January 13th. If not, I'll have something else ready. But assuming it releases on January 13th, even in early access, I think I want to show off the a good chunk of that game. So I might spend a week or 2 weeks just on that game. And the other option is I can mix in little scenarios now, because the tutorials are available. I can mix in the tutorials now. I thought of doing one on New Year's Day, but I think I might need to practice those tutorials first. I actually had trouble with the first one because there's a lot of extra steps you need to do, kind of like in Train Sim World 3. But when I was actually in the middle of one of the scenarios, I ended up going to the menu at one point to check a keyboard command, because the keyboard commands are all different. And it turns out that when I went back to the game, it crashed on me, and I lost all that progress. So the recording I was doing at the time, it's no good. I have to start over. So I'm going to have to do that scenario over. It makes sense that I practice the start of the scenario first, make sure I know how to get the train to the point that it's moving. Once I know how to get the train moving and I have my own little guide for doing that, I can easily use that as a startup guide every single time I drive that train. Just keep it on hand for myself. And we proceed easily with every single scenario, tutorial, and everything else on video at that point. So once I get some practice in, I want to show you the tutorial and whatever else I can show you at that time. If I don't start until the payware comes out, some of the tutorials may even go behind a higher level, in which case I'll have to show you those later. It's probably better that I wait until later to show you those. So we're probably going to be seeing the first train at release, then I'm going to probably go into some scenarios with that train. I also want to show off dispatching. I may do a bonus video showing off the dispatching in that game, because that is something that is incredibly unique. And I can possibly talk about some of the trains that are on the rails as we do dispatching, because we're going to go by my dispatching center as I do dispatching. So I'm going to see if I can get a video in for you guys doing some dispatching, preferably at one of my favorite train stations on that game, and that is at the... I can never say the first part of the name unless I'm looking at it. Sosoniec Glowney or something like that. I have to look up the full names of all the interlockings and stations on the route so I don't embarrass myself, because I will embarrass myself being a non-Polish. I will insult the Polish. I actually had to get someone to tell me of Katowice. I was calling it Katowice, but it's apparently Katowice. That's an example of I need to make sure I don't embarrass myself. Uh-oh, the emergency stop cord has been pulled. The onboard police sergeant will investigate. That could give me a heart attack. I knew it was coming. Hold still till you get the all clear. We're not going to be holding still if you haven't figured that out. We're going to be moving right away. You saw me playing Sherman Hill, right? You saw me playing with the emergency brake pulled on Sherman Hill in the Midnight Magnet. We're not staying at a stop for very long. We're moving. They're going to investigate while we're already moving. So I'm already advising the sergeant, I am going to keep moving. I think it's just a prank. We're late. We need to get there. Now, if I were doing that in real life, I would be fired. But given that we are under a strict timetable, I can't sit still. I have to go. We're already at that time as an ETA at this speed. So now we can move that off. We're going to go ahead and put the throttle back on. And we're going to disregard the sergeant. We're going to get our message from him later as to what was going on. And we're on the way. So yeah, what I know about the route in SimRail so far, it starts at Katowice, and I think that's going to be the terminus of our route. There's not going to be anything beyond that. There are two routes that branch off from the Glowney station, which follows, and there's a couple in the middle of that as well, which might have control by us as well. And once we split off at that station, which is my favorite station on the route, and apparently many others, because it's always gone when I try to play, as soon as you past that station, there are two different routes you're going to end up taking. Only one is currently playable, and it's only playable up to the Pilochel or something like that. It was an overexcited fan. They have been fined by the police sergeant. You can proceed now. Thank you, train, for interrupting me. So, an excited fan. Okay. It was worth $90 fine, I guess, or £90 fine. Oh well. So, continuing onwards. So, yeah, I do want to show off a playtest dispatching scenario. It's actually very light, even at the busy station right now. It's very, very light. I want to see if I can show off a couple of the stations along there, some easy ones and some more complicated ones at the same time. And I may actually want to use some of the quieter routes just to show them off, because otherwise we're going to have to deal with interactions with other people possibly showing up, like people communicating to you, because that's one of the features. You can voice chat with anyone in the trains. Anyone within 10, 15 miles of you, if you can radio with them. You can tell them what you're doing when they approach the station. You can say you're going to be expecting to go on line 1. You're going to be cleared through. You're going to be following this train, or the section is clear ahead, or there's a train ahead of you and we need to hold you at this spot until we can clear you to proceed. Like, you, as a dispatcher, you get to tell them exactly what they're going to do. And that is the fun part of this. Sometimes they might get a little annoyed by some of the things, but sometimes it's beyond your control. So they have to respect that you're trying to do your job as efficiently as you can. And I've already played one of the harder stations quite a bit. And I've actually had a couple people tell me, just as this morning, I played it this morning as I'm recording this. I already had a couple people tell me that they thought I did that station very well from a dispatch side. And they had no problems, and that's great. Not that it's not something for me to necessarily brag about, but it just shows that when you have someone who knows what they're doing at a station, that you it helps sell the game. It really does help sell the game to have someone give you that good experience at a really busy station, show that you can have a nice clean run if you have good people playing the game. So we're going to be getting cleared off the main line if you can't tell, but I am going to be coming in faster because I know the speed limit problem and the emergency brake, so I'm going to possibly come in a little faster. But yeah, I've had that good experience with the game so far. I've seen some really weird things happen. Some really, how do I put this politely, messed up situations. I'm holding off swearing, guys. I really don't want to swear in case anyone who's young watches this. You never know. So I do want to show off the... now I'm going to start slowing down. I really do want to show off that game and the route in Poland, because the dispatch element is also really, really cool in that game. So I am looking forward to showing that off. I really am looking forward to it. Now I seem to be coming in a lot slower than I remember coming in previously. Why is that? I have no idea why that is. Quiet. So as you can see, we do have a green, which is funny. We went from yellow to green. There must have been a train following on the main line, because we've now been routed into the siding. I don't know if we were like that the whole time. I assume we were. Heavy brakes now. We're going to be speeding a little bit. That's fine. I already gave it a practice run. I've got my clear check mark. If I'm late, I'm late. This scenario is not set up very well to help someone be on time. So we're going to go to the scoring screen just to see what happens when this scenario ends, just to show you if I made this one on time or not. You'll notice, of course, that the introduction was taped before I made the practice run as well. I like to do the introduction first. In many cases, then sometimes I'll give it a practice run, then I'll give it the official run. In this case, I had to know if I was on time, so I actually had to complete the practice run. I had to finish it. Didn't have a choice. Heavy brakes, we're going to come to a full stop now. I don't care where we are. I'm not going to the end of the platform. Or maybe I am at this point. Who knows? So, arrival at Darlington, platform number 4. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the train as we finish. So, the Green Howards has arrived at Darlington. Some excited football fans, excuse me, soccer fans. Sorry, North America, I insulted you. Are going to be getting off of the train. And, including that overexcited fan who now has to pay a fine. I hope it was worth the trip to see a soccer game. I keep doing it. Am I turning English? What's wrong with me? Give me some fish and chips now. Moving on. Well done. You've arrived at Darlington Station within the time limit, despite the emergency stop instance. I guess I was on time. We will use you again for special train assignments. Thank you very much. Let's go and see if I actually was on time, shall we? Very rare standard scenario moment. Off to the menu! Ah, someone walking by. Lovely. There it is. Up for the cup. And we did get 2 out of 2. The reason you know that we got the achievement is because it says we stopped, or we picked up passengers at 2 out of 2 platforms. The other ones were already 0 for your goals. So if any of those was missing a number, that would mean in this case we didn't complete the final task or some other task along the way. And if you miss any one task, you get a failure. You can speed. You can see I sped twice. I'm still successful. But if you don't make it to your destination on time at any point, you fail the scenario completely. This is why I don't mind career scenarios. If you can still get a score on a career scenario and pass the scenario, you just may not get a perfect score. You can even do the scenario poorly. As long as you make all of your stops, you can be late for all of your stops and still get the check mark. I have a check mark on the 3-hour Donner Pass scenario, even though it's impossible to get a score anything above minus 10,000. Above being positive, by the way, is what I'm referring to by that. So you can be minus 10,000, you still get that check mark. But if we were driving that scenario as standard form, at the speed limits we're expected to drive at, we would fail completely. So that tells you the difference between career scenario and a standard scenario. Yes, it can be impossible to get a perfect score, but you can at least get a score and complete the scenario and get a check mark to show you've done the scenario. In standard form, you don't get that check mark if it's a timetable scenario. So I still prefer career scenarios from that end, though I do understand why a lot of people don't like them for the casual standard drives, especially because a lot of good scenario makers will give that extra leeway for stops and make it so that you would have to be really trying. You would have to really be going out of your way to not succeed at a scenario. So those are the good scenario makers out there, guys. Definitely play their scenarios. And I think Armstrong Powerhouse, based on the 1 or 2 I've played of theirs so far, does fall into that group. I know a lot of people praise his scenarios, even the payware ones in his Powerhouse thing, which I can't understand, 99 cents a scenario. Do a scenario pack. Stay with the scenario packs. You had a good thing going with those. I don't like this 99-cent thing. Sorry. But I won't get into my beefs and that right now, because I know there are a lot of people who will disagree with me for the sake of disagreeing with me. And even on the Steam discussion forum last week, I had someone do that. So I'm not going to get into that because it's not worth it. What I will do is I will say make sure you like this video. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel. I will see you tomorrow for the second of the 3 Deltic scenarios. Now, I originally had plans to do a New Year's Day scenario on this. I was going to surprise you with that, but I've decided to cancel that plan because the scenario I was looking at would have been at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning. Actually, I think it is closer to 1 o'clock in the morning. No, it is 2 o'clock, 7,200 seconds, so it would have been 2 o'clock in the morning. And while I could have moved the timings up a bit to make it daytime, I figured, you know what, it's not worth it. We're just going to let it be. So I'm not going to do a New Year's scenario. I don't have one for this route that I could find very easily that I felt was a good one to run. And with sim rail stuff I need to plan for and do some practicing on for driving the trains, I'm going to need to spend some time on that and the additional scenario content for this as well. So it is going to be all Train Sim Classic up to the sim rail release, but I'm probably going to do at least the first week of sim rail being exclusively sim rail. I'll try to do a good balance after that because I do want to show off all sorts of different content, but I am going to be continually going back to sim rail because there are 2 routes on there and I want to show them both off. They're both in Poland. Definitely expect that in the future. In the meantime, have a wonderful day, evening, night, whatever it is for you at your part of the world. I look forward to celebrating New Year's Eve with you with another run, ironically enough, I believe also from York to Darlington. And we're going to do that next time. I'll see you for that. That next video will begin in 3, 2, 1.